Here's Shed. Off the window, no. Roberts tried to get it. Shed for the win. Got it. Jamal Shed plays the hero again.
Back to pass. Donovan Smith. Smith steps up in the pocket, unloads it, throws it all the way downfield into the end zone. Tipped, and it is caught. Caught by the Cougars. Caught for a touchdown. Unbelievable. Caught by Stephon Johnson.
Stick it in your pipe and smoke it, baby. Yes!
Welcome to the Scotland Home Podcast. Tonight is an extremely special occasion. We are live from the red carpet here at the 9th annual Pawscar Awards, honoring the best University of Houston teams, athletes, coaches, and moments from the 2024 and 25 athletics year. I am Sam, your red carpet correspondent, and I'm wearing an outfit that's tied together by the bright red suit jacket worn by former U of H men's basketball coach Tom Penders for special occasion games, along with red pants that are somehow both too tight and too loose. On my figure, I'm doing my best attempt here at being some combination of Ryan Seacrest and the late Joan Rivers. I'm ducking and dodging the various paparazzi members as they snap pictures. And who is that I see in the distance? Why? Wearing Old Navy brand cargo jean shorts and a limited edition t-shirt that you could only get by attending the 2007 event U of H Cats Back at the old University Center, with that outfit tied together by an authentic pair of Stephon Marbury's signature basketball shoe. That's right, folks, the Starberry. It's podcast co-host emeritus Dustin. Dustin, how you doing tonight, pal?
I'm doing great. I was already excited for this episode, and in 10 years of podcast hosting, that might be the best intro you've ever done. So I'm disappointed we're not doing video episodes anymore, so that everyone couldn't see me and Bobby desperately trying to hold back laughter as you were doing that. Well played, sir.
Thank you. Coming up behind Dustin here, I see a man making what can only be described as a bold-fashioned statement. He is wearing an outfit, folks, that's head-to-toe Houston blue. He's wearing a light blue jacket over a light blue shirt that says verbatim, Houston blue actually isn't entirely related to the Oilers. He has a custom 5950 fitted baseball cap with Houston Cop Car blue and stylized script lettering, light blue pants, and I gotta say, the piece de resistance, a pair of light blue shoes that light up every time he takes a step. Bobby, my good friend, my regular co-host of this show, how excited are you to talk through the best of the best in the season that was of Cougar Athletics?
It's the best episode of the year, and also, I'm pretty sure that outfit you just described is from Dumb and Dumber. I don't know why I'm wearing it. Who's in the orange next to me? That really upsets me, but no, man, this is one of, if not the best episodes. I know when I was a listener for, 8 years, for 8 seasons, that this was one of my favorite episodes to turn on as I drove 45 minutes to work and to argue with you guys over the winners and furiously type in my votes. That was always something I always looked forward to, especially like play of the year, getting to go back and watch all those as a fan, and then hear what you guys describe. And again, being y'all's friends, texting you right after I listened to the show, like, no, you guys messed that one up. I can't believe us fans voted for this XYZ. So always a great episode.
Yeah, it's a trip down memory lane from the season that was. There's always things that are exciting when you recap a full 9-10 months of sports, and I think this season's certainly no exception to that. Only housekeeping here at the top. I'm going to quickly mention our Patreon, patreon.com/shpodcast. If you like the work we do and would like to support the work that Bobby and I do, and occasionally joined by our podcast host, America's Dustin, on a weekly basis, please go to patreon.com/shpodcast. No delaying any further, guys. Let's get to it. Let's talk about a fantastic athletic season. Let's award, for the 9th time, some Pawscar winners.
All right, everybody. Well, I am going to start us off here with Male Athlete of the Year. Just some notable athletes who have won. Obviously, everyone here is going to be notable, seeing as how it is the winner. You had Cam Burrell. You had a 3-way tie. Ed Oliver's won this. Eli Hall. Cam Burrell's won it multiple times. Kamari Montgomery, Quentin Grimes, Marcus Jones, Marcus Sasser. You have Jamal Shed, Louis Hinchcliffe. Just a who's who of Cougar athletes there. And this year, the nominees are John Adasola from track and field, Michael Batten from football, Keith Cooper Jr. from football as well, LJ Cryer from that national Final Four basketball team, Wolfgang Glow from golf, Antoine John from baseball, Jamar Marshall from track and field. And then finally, we had Milos Uzan rounding out the nominees. And Dustin, I'm going to send it to you first. Who did you choose and why?
Do you want to go ahead and give us your vote first, and then you can throw it to me? How about it?
Yeah, that sounds great. So my vote right here was Antoine Jean. Big 12 pitcher of the year as a reliever, dominant all season, 1.64 strikeouts per inning. That is an insane number. We go through all the stats and everything. 1.6 Ks per inning means over half of his outs come from strikeouts. That's insane to really think about. So if this team sniffs a regional, I think he's going down as one of, if not the best pitchers since we became fans in that 2008 season. I just kind of went through because I wanted to make sure to see how dominant it was. And if I was forgetting any pitching performances, he had 110 strikeouts on the year. Since 2008, when we became fans, only 3 players have had more strikeouts than he had this year. You had Lantrip with 115 on 113 innings. You had Seth Romero, 113 strikeouts on 94 innings. And then you had Cumby, 110 on 103 innings. You look at his strikeouts per 9, because if you're somebody who's like, what's a strikeout per inning, right? There have been 4 players that have had a higher strikeout per 9 than him since we became fans. Only 2 of those have pitched, or three of those have not pitched double-digit innings in the years in which they put up these numbers. The only person to even come close is Seth Romero with 48 innings pitched with 15.72 strikeouts per 9. That is an insane number, and that's why I voted for him. It is some of the best pitching that we have seen in this program in the 18 years, that the 3 of us have been friends. Since we have started watching this team, there hasn't been a pitcher that we've seen that has struck out as many guys as this. A sub 1 whip. It's just insane what he did this year. I think if we're just looking at strictly a player's performance, not what the team did and not including that, it's hard to go against him here. So Dustin, who'd you go with?
Yeah, I also picked Antoine Jean, and kind of for the same reason that you said there. It does feel a little bit strange not voting for a men's basketball player, but it's not a team award, it's an individual award. And I think one of the great things about that Cougar men's hoops team is that they relied on so many different players that it's hard to really pick one as like the most important guy. Lots of players in that team had great seasons, just like all the other nominees from all the sports had great seasons. That's why they're nominees for this award. But I'm just not sure that anyone else was as consistently excellent as Antoine Jean was throughout the entire season. Someone who was, I think, just I don't think anyone else was as key of a part of as a high percentage of his team's wins as Antoine Jean. This team, it just seemed like, anecdotally, just like almost every game that they won was because Antoine Jean came in and threw, but 2 to 5, just like really good innings. So for him to be getting all the postseason awards that he is, I think are completely justified. And that's why I voted for Antoine Jean. How about you, Sam?
I'm kind of dumbfounded that I'm the only one of the 3 of us that voted for LJ Cryer on this one. Like, I love Antoine Jean. I'm not going to make any negative case against Antoine Jean because that case doesn't exist, because everything you guys said is true. He was a really, really, really good pitcher. I still went with LJ Cryer because while he wasn't the only reason that Cougar men's basketball was the national runner-up and dog walked to the Big 12, if you want to talk about consistent contributors from that team, I couldn't pick anyone but Cryer. And remember, he'd had a good all-conference caliber season the season before this past one, but you had Jamal Shead moving on to the professional ranks. Even acknowledging that Cryer plays a different guard position, you knew going into this past season that LJ Cryer couldn't just have a carbon copy of the previous season if U of H was going to have a deeper run in the tournament, if U of H was going to really be a serious contender to win the whole thing like they were. And he took a big step up. He had the best full season. He has best full season shooting from 3-point range. Like you would expect from a veteran go-to guy, really picked up the team in games where they absolutely needed a vintage LJ Cryer performance. I want to give you guys an incomplete list of some of his really good performances from this most recent season. He had 30 points against Gonzaga in about the worst round of 32 matchup U of H could have gotten, 26 against Duke in that Final Four win. There were long stretches that game where LJ Cryer was the only Cougar player getting buckets against the Blue Devils. His final ever game in Waco, an absolute classic, torched Baylor for 23 points on 6 of 9. from 3-point range, and a few other times this season when he carried the Cougs in regular season games that weren't the best overall team effort. He had 28 points in that win over a surprisingly plucky, shorthanded Iowa State team at the Fertitta Center. He had 20 in the lone head-to-head win against Cincy, which kind of wasn't a vintage performance for the team overall. And then 22 points in a win over Kansas in this final game at the Fertitta Center. Not to mention, second year in a row, LJ Cryer was a key cog in the number one defensive team in college men's basketball after coming into this program a couple seasons ago with real questions about his ability to defend at the level that Kelvin Sampson asked of his guys. There were a lot of other worthy picks, including the guy you two picked, Antoine Jean. LJ Cryer is mine here.
And the fans agree with Sam on this one, so we have a tie between the two, between Antoine Jean and LJ Cryer for Male Athlete of the Year.
All right, moving on to Female Athlete of the Year. Our past winners here are Shelby Miller and Savannah Hebner from Cougar Softball, followed by Leonie Harm and Karen Fredgard from Cougar Golf. Then it was back-to-back wins by Kate Georgiadis, and then last year it was Kenna Sauer, so make it a three-year streak of a volleyball player winning the award. So we've been very streaky as to which sport wins Cougar Female Athlete of the Year over the years. This year, our nominees were Layla Blair from Cougar Women's Basketball, Kayla Dove from Track and Field, Henrietta Fongley from Swimming and Diving, Kate Georgiadis once again, Angela Grieve, her teammate on the volleyball team, Valeria Krokatina from Cougar Tennis, Michelle McLeod, the diver for the Cougar Swimming and Diving team, Moa Svidenskjold from the women's golf team, and finally Brooke Wells from the Cougar softball team. And my vote here was for Kate Georgiadis. And my thinking was that she was the best player at her position in the Big 12. That fourth team All-American tells us she's maybe the, roughly give or take fourth best player at her position in the entire country. Just the heartbeat leader of the team, even in a year when the team took a bit of a dip, with the loss of so many seniors from last year's team. So really just there were, like we can say this for every category, lots of qualified candidates. And, I had kind of three in particular, her Henrietta Fongley from the swimming and diving team and Kayla Dove from track and field that I think those two as well. Those were kind of my final three that I really spent a lot of time bouncing back and forth between. And Henrietta Fongley, finished sixth in her event. So, about the sixth best player in her event in the country. Georgiadis maybe were give or take the fourth best player at her position. So I think really hard to Kayla Dove, I think had she been able to compete in NCAA outdoors, maybe she would have done something there that could have maybe even leapfrogged her over those other two athletes. So really tough for her, obviously to get injured and miss that opportunity to compete. But between those three, really, really struggled, but ended up on voting one more time, voting for the third time that I voted for Kate Georgiadis in this category. Sam, who do you like here?
We had the same final three, but we landed on a different winner here. I picked Kayla Dove for the Cougar Female Athlete of the Year because I believe if she had been healthy for the outdoor postseason beyond Big 12 championships, that Dove's accomplishments here would have put her among the best men's and women's athletes entirely this season. And I don't think you have to imagine too much there. She was third at NCAA indoor championships in the shot put and the Big 12 shot put champion in both indoors and outdoor seasons. Previous multi-time All-American in her last program, North Texas. And that's a painful what if for me, Dove not being able to compete at NCAA outdoors and the prelims leading up to it this season. And I'm not going to make a negative case against Kate Georgiadis and just say Kate Georgiadis. Trust me, I will be talking about Kate Georgiadis here later if that's not tipping my hand. But even if you want to just grade Kayla Dove purely on what she did, nothing more, nothing less, other than Kate Georgiadis and maybe Henrietta Fongley, there wasn't a Cougar female athlete on this list who was the best at their, event, discipline, specific position, wherever you want to slice it, the way Kayla Dove was, and that helped me land here. And again, it hurt not picking Kate Georgiadis for this one, but I've had days to think about it now, and I think I'm still at peace with taking Kayla Dove here for Cougar Female Athlete of the Year. Bobby, who'd you pick?
Yeah, I also went with Kayla Dove. You sweep Big 12 championships. You also placed third in indoors. That's a hell of a season. The outdoors not being participating in the outdoors because of health definitely hurts. I can't argue against the Kate Georgiadis. Those were my top two. And also it kind of felt like this is going to sound terrible, but it felt a lot like LeBron James winning the MVP every year. It's like, okay, like You're always the best athlete, Kate Georgiadis. Let's give it to somebody else here. Kate Georgiadis, one of my favorite athletes who has ever come through the entire athletic department. I think, to your point, Dustin, she is one of the best players in the country at what she did. But Kayla Dove getting sweeping Big 12s and also placing third in the indoor championships. That's why I gave it to her.
All right, the fans actually disagreed with all three of us. They went with Henrietta Fongley from the swimming and diving team. She had got 40.9% of the vote, followed by Kate Georgiadis with 27.3% and Kayla Dove at 22.7%. So the fans definitely agreeing with us on who the top three choices were. But as Kayla Dove is the only one to get 2 votes there, she is our winner for Female Athlete of the Year.
Our next category is the Game of the Year team category, specifically your past winners there, where the football win over Oklahoma, the hoops win over Cincinnati, hoops win the NCAA tournament over Ohio State, a men's hoops Elite 8 win over Oregon State, men's basketball Sweet 16 win over Arizona, football defeating Memphis, and men's basketball defeating Kansas at the Fertitta Center was your winner. Last year, nominees for this season were football rallying in the rain to beat a top 25 K-State team, women's golf winning the Schooner Fall Classic over a loaded field of opponents, men's basketball winning a wild double overtime comeback game at Kansas, women's hoops stunning top 25 Oklahoma State at home, and the men's hoops crazy Final Four victory over Duke. Guys, I voted for the Final Four win over Duke, and it was an extraordinarily easy pick for me. I mean, excluding the categories where the only choices were U of H men's basketball and Kelvin Sampson, I believe I spent the least amount of time thinking about this one before locking in my pick. There are other very good, enjoyable team performances from the past season among that group, but none are going to stick with me. Like getting to be with my dad watching Cougar men's basketball come from behind to beat a massive program like Duke, and not just beat Duke, but beat a version of Duke that had one of the best freshmen in college basketball history, Cooper Flagg, and multiple other high draft pick kind of guys. As long as I will draw breath, I'm going to have this vivid memory of the roller coaster of kind of thinking to myself at about 6 or 7 minutes left in the second half, okay, if we don't get this down to single digits, I think we're just kind of waiting out the final score here too. All right, yeah, at least the guys are still fighting to, this is getting interesting, to very quickly pure delirium at the realization that U of H might actually win this basketball game. I enjoyed every single entry on this list, and others that missed the cut is very good, but not maybe the creme de la creme of the best Cougar team performances this season. But none of those games will be a part of the tapestry of my larger sports fandom, U of H and every other team I root for, the way that Final Four win over Duke was. It might genuinely be the most I've enjoyed a game in 20-ish years of Cougar fandom. Bobby, who's your pick?
Yeah, it's got to be the Final Four game versus Duke. Being there for it, absolutely insane. I'm hugging strangers, people I had never seen before. I had fans behind me of other teams yelling at me to sit down, and I told them not now. It was just, the whole day was awesome. Like driving down, the excitement driving down, walking to the stadium was awesome. But then the game itself, like you, Sam, it was kind of one of those like, all right, if we're going to do something, we need to make a run here. All right, if we can cut it to 10 by this time, we can win this game. And then you see the foul, and I'll never forget, I have a whole row to myself because the game before us was over, and the people sitting directly behind me were fans of, I think, Florida. They had their time the next day. And so they're behind me. They leave, and so I'm watching the game. At the end of my row, there's some U of H fans, and I remember screaming, losing my mind when we got the foul. And the Alamo Dome's a terrible place to watch a game, and no matter where you were, the seats were terrible, and I had bad seats. So I'm screaming. I'm like, let's go, let's go. And then I see it's Wani going to the line, and I'm like, just give me one, Wani. I need one, buddy. I need one. And he makes it. And the guys behind me in another row who told me to sit down at some point were they were like, you got one when he made the first one. I was like, that's all I needed. That's all I needed. And then when he made the second one, it was pandemonium. And the clock hit 0. and I'm hugging strangers that are also wearing red. I think they were U of H fans, and we're just losing our minds, having a great time. So that right there will be, to your point, Sam, one of the best games I've ever attended in my life, one of the best times I've had in my life. I've done some really cool sporting events, and that one's definitely, if not number one, it's in the top 3.
Yeah, I also picked the men's hoops win over Duke in the NCAA tournament. I genuinely, I probably thought about this maybe a little bit more than it sounds like you guys did. I really thought about picking the Kansas game. And in fact, for many of the scholars of my Pawscar voting that definitely exists out there, they might have expected me to vote for the Kansas game because there was a 3-year stretch once in podcast history where all 3 years in a row, Sam and the fans voted for men's basketball's last win in the NCAA tournament. And I voted in vain for a different men's basketball game, arguing that it was a better game, but even if it didn't mean as much, and trying to argue for judging the game outside of the context of what it meant for the overall season. And I even still think that maybe if you were to look at it, arguably if you completely strip out all the context, I think maybe the Kansas game is a slightly crazier, better game. But the Duke win was wild enough on its own to put it very much in the same ballpark as the Kansas game. And B, I can't just completely ignore the context of beating Cooper Flagg and Duke, avenging last year's tournament loss, and earning the right to play for a national championship. I don't think I'll ever forget watching either of those games, but I am more sure that I will never forget that win in the Alamo Dome, experiencing it with my fiance, and just the impossible levels of joyous disbelief that we were feeling when that game went final.
Will probably surprise nobody. This was a unanimous vote. The fans, 69% of them voted for this as well. So a 4-0 win for, I think, a deserving winner. And I take your point, Dustin. I do think this game. I think you can make an argument for this game both for the context around it and the game itself, or just being an absolutely fantastic one.
All right, so that moves us to best game of the year individual here. Past winners have been Ed Oliver, which, no offense, Sam, I don't know how you didn't vote for him that year. And then you have Rob Gray versus San Diego State. You have Corey Davis versus Cincy. Deke Giroux versus Rutgers. Then you had a 3-way tie with Kyler Edwards versus Arizona, Taze Moore versus Illinois, and Marcus Jones versus SMU. Then you had Warren versus South Dakota. And then last year you had Sean Masquaniani winning 3 titles at Big 12 Outdoors, and Emmanuel Sharp in his 30-point performance over Texas A&M. Those were some awesome performances. And really, when I was going back through the previous Pawscar winners, I was like, man, those were some fun times. So this year we had a long list of nominees. I think the longest that we've had, because there were some really good moments this year. You had Caden Brodnax winning the 100-meter, finishing 4th place in the 200 at Big 12s. You had Zion Chris in the win over TCU. LJ Cryer putting up 26 points versus Duke. AJ Halsey versus TCU. Antoine John with 11 Ks at UCF. Xavier Perez over Rice. Melissa Vinnesgold winning the Veritex Bank Collegiate. Milos Uzan versus Kansas. And then you have Milos Uzan again versus Purdue. And for me, this one may surprise you guys, I went with Zion Chris versus TCU. And I went strictly on the one-game performance. It's easy with this to kind of look at the broader thing here and like, oh, Zion Chris was kind of good. He had his moments. It was really good. But this game, 15 of 17, or 15 of 18, 97 rushing yards. That 71-yard scamper before halftime, magical play. I was in the stadium for it, and it just kind of felt like that. As weird as it sounds for halftime being a dagger, that touchdown really felt like a dagger to a lot of the TCU fans when I was there. After he scored, I mean, I was surrounded by TCU fans, and they threw their hands up, and a bunch left at halftime. They just didn't see what the offense was doing, and Zion Chris was just kind of running wild on them during that game. So that's kind of where I went with it. That game also gave people a lot of hope for what this team could be. I think if you change this result, and I think if you change the result of a game that is also a nominee, the Kansas State game, it's kind of one of those things where if those don't go the way you think they do, if Zion Chris doesn't come in and perform the way he does, do you feel as good as you do heading into this upcoming season? Or do you feel as okay about last season if you don't have this game from Zion Chris? So that's why I went with that Zion Chris game versus TCU. Dustin, where'd you go?
I picked Milos Uzan's game at Kansas. 17 points, 9 boards, 9 assists, just a hair away from a triple-double. Not a single turnover in a 50-minute game. I don't even play all 50 minutes. I don't know exactly how many minutes he played, but double overtime game, your point guard didn't commit a single turnover, and of course had the key steal of the inbounds pass to set up that Malik Wilson game-tying 3 at the end of overtime. That's about as flawless a game as you can play. It's hard to play a game with fewer errors than that. And I think it came at a really critical point in the season for the team and for Milos. Because, in a game that was that close, if he doesn't play an absolutely perfect game, you don't win. And it was, I think, huge for him as well. I think it really represented him taking a leap from a good player to a great player, a leap that he had to take for the Cougars to have as deep of a run in the NCAA tournament as they did. Spoiler alert, the fan vote was more split on this category than any other category. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I don't know if we've literally ever had a Pawscar Award where the winner of the fan vote got less than a third of the vote. That is how much the vote was split on this category. I respect that. I respect that for many people. This wasn't even Milos Uzan's best game of the year, but despite as many good quality candidates as there were in this category, this is one where I felt pretty good about my pick.
You guys make good cases for both of your picks. I'm going to make it 3 out of 3 different picked winners from the hosts here. And I had a much, much tougher time getting here than I did on the team category we just talked about previously. I went with Milos Uzan's game against Purdue. We've already talked about the Final Four win over Duke for good reason. If Uzan doesn't have an A+ game against Purdue here, guys, I think there's a pretty good chance we're talking about a third straight season of the men's basketball program going out of the tournament a bit earlier than expected. I know narratives can be oversimplified for mass consumption by lower information sports fans, but how do you think it would be an unfair narrative if this was the reality where U of H went out for a third straight Sweet 16 as a 1 seed? Thankfully, we do not live in that reality, and U of H was able to get past Purdue in this one. Purdue playing essentially a home game with no one player doing more heavy lifting there than Uzan did against Boilermakers. It's not just the fantastic sequence, on the game winner, the pass, and then the pass back from JoJo Tugler. But really, other than when I looked at the box score, maybe Javier Francis, there wasn't another Cougar player that night who had a good game scoring the basketball. He was really, really good offensively when you needed him to be near perfect and made many plays along the way to win a hugely important basketball game, I would say, in about the most adverse conditions possible. Hence, it was my pick, but the fan vote and us having 3 different games, I think tells you that there's no winner here that, I wouldn't say it doesn't feel a little controversial. That's not what I'm going for. I would say this is a very hard one to pick.
Yeah, and to Dustin's point, we see the same thing out of the fan vote. Milos Uzan versus Purdue gets the victory here with 31.8% of the vote. So fans agree with Sam here, and I can't argue with that result here either. So Dustin, you have our next 2 categories, I believe.
I do. Going to go ahead and kind of
some real drama here. Who won these?
Right. So our next 2 categories were Team of the Year and Coach of the Year. Team of the Year, the winner was men's track and field. The first 3 years that we did this, it's been men's hoops all 4 post-COVID years, with only 2 total dissenting votes over those 4 years. This year, it's unanimously men's hoops with its 5th straight win. Like Governor Marley on Monkey Island, when there's only one candidate, there's only one choice. That's a reference specifically for friend of the pod Bill's benefit, and probably no one else's, I'm guessing here. And then for Coach of the Year, past winners, Ryan Wakamerka was the inaugural winner. Kelvin Sampson won the next 4. 2 years ago, David Rare was the unanimous winner. And then last year, it was back to Kelvin for his 5th win. And this year, once again, a unanimous 6th win for Kelvin Sampson, the only candidate. We got no write-in votes, despite that we did leave it open. If anyone wanted to write in a vote, we did leave that open. And in fact, I think the one write-in vote we got was for LJ Cryer versus Gonzaga for Game of the Year individual. So I'll throw that out, the one individual who took the time to write in a vote on one of these categories. But no surprise, no dissenting votes here. Kelvin Sampson and Cougar men's basketball Coach and Team of the Year, respectively.
I disagree. No, I'm just kidding. It would be ridiculous to disagree with that. So
Yeah, I mean, not due to lack of other compelling teams, athletes, and storylines, but I mean, I struggle to think of any other team or coach or topic of any kind from our 10 years doing this podcast that would have challenged U of H and Kelvin Sampson in a season where this program was a hair's breadth away from winning the national title. Like we haven't. You had track and field finishing third in 2019 outdoors. You had David Rare taking volleyball to the Sweet 16, Cougar football winning the Peach Bowl our first season. I mean, those are all great. I still think even those incredible moments don't stack up to what the men's basketball program and Kelvin Sampson did this year. Hence, both are unanimous and very deserving winners.
Guys, I think that if we told a coach, one of the coaches in this athletic department that they won Coach of the Year over Kelvin Sampson, they would smack us. So I don't think, and Team of the Year, and that's not a shot at any team here. I think their coaches would be like, I mean, yeah. Yeah.
So our next award is the Graduating Senior of the Year. Past winners are Greg Ward Jr., Rob Gray, Galen Robinson Jr., a three-way tie between Deke Giroux, Mackenzie Leahy, and Marquis Stevenson, Fabian White Jr., Tank Dell, and most recently, Jamal Shed. Your nominees for this current season for Graduating Senior of the Year were Layla Blair from Cougar Women's Basketball, Henrietta Fongley from Cougar Swimming and Diving, Kate Georgiadis from Cougar Volleyball, and last but not least, J1 Roberts from Cougar Men's Basketball. I picked Kate Georgiadis here. I really could not pick anyone but Georgiadis for this, even acknowledging that it almost goes against how I'm hard-coded as a Cougar fan to see J1 Roberts on a list and not pick J1 Roberts for what he did in as many years as he did it for the Cougar Men's Basketball program. But I also couldn't go through all of these categories and not award something to Georgiadis, the defensive spine of Cougar Volleyball during its most successful run this century. It would be doing a disservice to a number of other key contributors, teammates of hers from these past several years, to say Kate Georgiadis' contributions are definitively ahead of, say, Abby Jackson or Isabel Toyd or Morgan Yonder, Annie Cook, Rachel Tullis, many others that I'm not going to name here for time constraints. It does really take a team effort to be as good as those Cougar teams were in 22 and 23. I still say if you replaced any of those key contributors over the past several years with a replacement level player, you wouldn't have seen the drop off anywhere more than you would have if Kate Georgiadis had been replaced by just college average libero. The defensive spine is a very good team. Someone who I'm certain could have left U of H volleyball after the 23 season and had her pick of blue blood programs to play her final college volleyball season at, instead chose to finish her career with the Cougs. Great player, and from those who have coached her and played with her, an even better teammate in person. It would take a U of H athlete being a hell of a player and a hell of a person for me to even entertain the notion of not picking J1 Roberts here, but I would say Georgiadis is a hell of a player in person, hence my pick here. Won't begrudge anyone who picks differently, but I'm at peace with Georgiadis here. Bobby, who is your graduating senior of the year?
My answer is simple. It's Wani Roberts. As president of the J1 Roberts fan club, have been for about 2 seasons now. He is the heart and soul of a team that, to what you said earlier, Sam, was a breath away from a national championship. You don't see Kelvin Sampson get emotional very often, but that hug with Wani at center court on senior day just shows just how important Wani was to the revitalization of this program. He came in, and that's not to say that the program was in a bad spot when he was here. It was on its way up, but Wani Roberts, the most winning player in Cougar basketball history. Hard to ignore that. I will be honest, Georgiadis had my vote for a while, and then I just really sat and thought about Wani Roberts. So I went with J1 Roberts. We have him as the team of the year, undisputed, no challenger, the heart and soul of that team. Wani Roberts gets the win for me there.
I agreed with Sam. I went with Kate Georgiadis on this one. It hurts me not to vote for Layla Blair and Henrietta Fongley. It kills me not to vote for J1 Roberts. I physically could not vote for Kate Georgiadis. She checks every possible box for me. Performed at an all-conference level 4 years in a row. Came up big in big matches. Coach Rare raved about her leadership and selflessness. Led the team, again, like Sam said, other players, but helped lead the team to an absolute renaissance. Gave us the most memorable single play from that program in decades. I could not vote for her. It was that simple. My only other thought is I very much do not envy is whoever is Houston's libero next year, because man, those are going to be some impossible shoes to fill.
I think kind of appropriately, this is going to end up a tie because the fan vote by 69% was for J1 Roberts, meaning J1 Roberts and Kate Georgiadis will share this award. Not privy to that, but beforehand, so I didn't set this up, but very happy that is how it worked out.
Honestly, yeah. Even as I was voting for Kate Georgiadis, in my heart, I was like, I kind of hope J1 gets 2 votes, because at least I feel like they do deserve to split it. And so I'm kind of glad that that's where we ended up.
Yeah, and what's funny is we don't always like the ties and that kind of stuff. I remember when I joined last year, we were like, oh, this opens up more ties. But now it's like, no, for once we actually like the tie here. Both are equally deserving. And I think either one, if one of us would have picked it, I don't think anyone begrudges anybody for the choices that were made there. All right, so next up we have Freshman of the Year, or as it used to be known as Newcomer of the Year, but it's since been changed to Freshman for, you guys know why. We had Ed Oliver win it. Kamari Montgomery has won. Obi Igbokwe has won. Sean Moxquaniani, Kyler Edwards, Kate Georgiadis, Alton McCaskill, Jarris Walker, Michaela Mooten won. So for me, Freshman of the Year, I went with Brooke Wells. I'm not thrilled with picking somebody that is currently in the transfer portal to be our Freshman of the Year, but she came in, she was the best player on the team. She did a lot of things with that softball program. It's hard to argue against that. She was really damn good when you just kind of look at her stats. So just based on that, I would love to not pick somebody in the transfer portal, and maybe winning a Pawscar will change her mind.
Yeah, well, she committed to Bama over the weekend, Bobby. So I'm gonna.
It's still possible, Sid.
Yeah, so I actually voted for Lottie Cullen from swimming and diving, and I know I kind of semi-joked last week about dinging Brooke Wells for hitting the portal, but even though we had Wells as a female athlete of the year nominee and not Cullen, I really don't think that my vote, I mean, it maybe subconsciously was, but I don't think consciously, at least, that my vote for Cullen is a result of, as far as I know, her coming back next year and Wells not doing so. I think the main reason Cullen didn't get a female athlete nom and Wells did is because Wells was the best player on her team, whereas Cullen had a bunch of even more successful upperclassmen ahead of her on the team. We could only put so many swimmers and divers in that category. But Wells, I mean, had a great season. She set a school record in her event. She finished second place in the Big 12 in her event. To do that as a freshman is absolutely incredible, and I think that resume makes her worthy of this pick here, not even needing the benefit of, as far as we know, knock on wood, coming back next year.
I think I telegraphed my pick here last week. I picked Lottie Cullen as well, Dustin, when we read the nominees to this category. Because there are times when you look at an athlete's freshman season and you can pretty easily see how that athlete could develop into a program great level of athlete, and Lottie Cullen is that for me. We've been lucky in the last decade or so to cover the best crop of swimmers the Cougar program has had in our lifetimes. And Cullen isn't the first one of those swimmers to have a really good start to her career, but I think you'd be hard pressed to look at even the best of the best swimmers of this period and see someone who immediately announced her presence in the program the way Lottie Cullen did in the 24-25 season, setting a school record, being one of the top performers against a high level of opponent at Big 12 championships, earning Big 12 Newcomer of the Week 4 different times over the course of the season, and qualifying for NCAA as a freshman. To me, that made picking Lottie Cullen almost no-brainer. I did give Brooke Wells a serious look here, and if her Big 12 specific numbers have been a little bit better, because if you look at conference-only numbers, Jordy Wilkins actually hit a decent bit better by average in Big 12 play. This would have been a much tougher decision. Obviously, Wells is a very good player. I expect she'll be an all-SEC player at Bama, at minimum, by the time her college career is up. I will reiterate, say what Dustin said, there was no anti-U of H softball or Brooke Wells transferring out bias here. She had one of the better freshman seasons in Cougar softball history, and there's some competition there. Also, still very bullish on Rashawn Sanford long-term. He deserved to be on this list, but on principle, I don't think anyone involved with the 2024 Cougar football offense deserves to be awarded anything other than hey, hope you do better next year. Yeah, I'm still very bullish on him long-term, so feel good about picking Lottie Cullen there.
All right, well, the fans actually tied here. Lottie Cullen and Brooke Wells got 39.1% of the vote, so that makes it 2.5 to 1.5 there for your winner, Lottie Cullen.
All right, next up we got transfer of the year. As Bobby mentioned, this has only been a category since last year, so the only previous winner of transfer of the year is men's track and field's Louis Inchliff last year. Looking at this year, our nominees are John Adasola from track and field, Michael Batten and Keith Cooper Jr. from Cougar football, Kayla Dove from track and field, Angela Grieve from volleyball, and Milos Uzan from Cougar basketball, men's basketball. My vote was for Milos Uzan. It was given the nearly impossible task of replacing Jamal Shed without even having the benefit of having gotten to play and practice alongside Jamal Shed for a year. Just thrown into the deep end for a team and a coaching staff and a fan base with extremely, extremely high expectations for point guard play. We talk about the impossibility of trying to replace Kate Georgiadis next year. That's kind of what Milos Uzan had to do. And he absolutely flourished. He made it by the end of the year. Not again, he's his own player. Didn't have to be Jamal Shed, but by the end of the year, no one was going, man, I wish we still had Jamal Shed around. They were going, yeah, Uzan has absolutely replaced him and flourished, exceeded my wildest expectations, my highest hopes. And him doing that is a huge part of why the Cougars found themselves in the NCAA championship game. And as impressive as these other 5 candidates are, really hard to pick against Kayla Dove sweeping the Big 12 titles in the shot put. Really hard to pick against John Adasola winning a Big 12 title and finishing on the podium at NCAA championships. But Uzan was the nominee here that I felt like I couldn't vote against.
My finalists for this one were Adasola and Milos Uzan, but like you, I went with Milos Uzan. At one point earlier in the week when I sat down to do my notes for this episode, I had Uzan penciled in. And then as recently as this morning, guys, I had John Adasola here. And I hate not picking Adasola because finishing third at NCAA Outdoors and being, I would say, the co-top performer of a top 25 Cougar track and field program is a really strong accomplishment, but I ultimately couldn't go anywhere but Uzan because of how unbelievably important he was this historic men's basketball season. That U of H, after losing Jamal Shed, was able to have a point guard who gave you what Uzan gave you over the course of the season. It's well-trodden ground here, but I mean, Kelvin Sampson is notoriously demanding of his point guards. And one of those pain points that never really got figured out over the season was who'd be the primary ball handler or distributor when Uzan was on the bench, which I think only underscores how important it was for him to be a high-level point guard because he was really the only guy you felt comfortable being the ball handler when he was in the court. I'm sort of biased also because I get so few opportunities to watch Cougar sports of any kind in person because I made the decision to live and work on the other side of the country. So watching Uzan in person largely will this team to a come from behind win at Arizona at an iconic venue like the McHale Center. That's going to stick in my mind for many, many years, even just as a regular season performance from a team that we get kind of spoiled for having lots of big postseason performances. Not to mention the Purdue game we talked about earlier, absolutely lighting up Arizona in the Big 12 tournament championship rematch. Critical part of that double overtime win at Kansas. He was an indispensable player at the one position on the roster going into this past season that was a question mark. And there wasn't really a cross-sport comparison there for me from any of the other very worthy candidates in this list. So I think Uzan had to be my pick. Bobby, who'd you pick?
Yeah, I went with John Adasola. Just third at nationals. You do well at Big 12s. You guys have said a lot of what John Adasola did, and that's why I went with him. If you are on the podium at nationals in a solo sport, I feel that that gets you transfer of the year for me. Milos Uzan, a great candidate here as well. One that I went back and forth with. He was definitely my number 2 choice there.
All right, the fans overwhelmingly went with Milos Uzan, got 69.6% of the vote here. Second place ended up being a 3-way tie between John Adasola, Kayla Dove, and Michael Batten from the Cougar football team. So with 3 votes, Milos Uzan is your second ever winner, Cougar transfer of the year.
So our last category, a personal favorite of mine, one we've only been doing since our 3rd edition of the Pawscar. So that was for the 2018-19 season that we've been doing the play of the year. Your past winners are De'Aaron King, absurd touchdown run against South Florida. Tremont Mark put back and won against Rutgers in the round of 32 of that tournament run. Marcus Jones's game-winning kick return touchdown against SMU. Kate Georgiadis leaping on a table to save a ball in a NCAA tournament win over South Dakota. And the most recent winner, the Donovan Smith to Stephon Johnson Hail Mary touchdown against West Virginia for the first ever Big 12 football win. Your nominees for this current season were Caden Broadnax running a personal best time in the 100 at Big 12 Champs to give Cougar Track and Field its 9th straight win in the event. You have the Miles Uzan inbound steal to Malik Wilson, game-tying 3 to send the Cougs to double overtime. At Kansas, Zion Chris scampering for what would be a ultimately game-winning touchdown run against top 25 K-State. You also had the Miles Uzan inbound pass to JoJo Tugler and pass back to Uzan for the game winner in the Sweet 16 against Purdue, and J1 Roberts playing lockdown D on Cooper Flag to force a bad shot and seal the U of H win over Duke in the Final Four. A lot of worthy contenders for this, guys, but I couldn't go anywhere but the J1 Roberts lockdown D on Cooper Flag to seal the Cougar win in the Final Four. In the moment, for me, the tension of whether or not Duke and their multiple uber talented freshmen find a way to steal back this win after I had finally started believing that U of H might win this basketball game was really stressful. And it took J1 Roberts, I think, playing 10 out of 10 perfect, no foul defense on Cooper Flag in that final Blue Devils possession to seal the Final Four win. A win that felt impossible as recently as 10 or 15 minutes before it actually happened, maybe even 5 minutes. The play itself was perfect, but I would say, like the best sports stories, the best sports moments, the narrative around it's even cooler. I mean, this is Duke, guys, the program with 5 national titles since 1991, a program that goes to the Final Four every few seasons. And at the risk of saying something nice about Cooper Flag, the top freshman, maybe the top player in the sport, a guy who's worth every bit of the hype with multiple soon-to-be high-drafted teammates in Colin Knippel and Kaman Melawak against U of H, a program that I think nobody at this point would call Cinderella, but also a program that's much newer in terms of a rival to the group of elite programs than the Duke Blue Devils. Everything up to this point, it had been an all-time classic of a Final Four game. And I would say with Roberts' defense on that play being the star of the show, the cherry on top of the fantastic performance. And you had J1 Roberts, this 3-star recruit, undersized power forward, a guy who consistently defied expectations, locking down one of the modern era's best pro prospects with a berth in the championship game on the line. It doesn't get a whole lot better than that. And thus, for me, I closed it out by picking J1 Roberts against Duke. Bobby, who's your play of the year?
Once again, as president of the Jawan Roberts fan club, give me Wani locking up a Dallas Maverick draft pick Cooper Flag for the play of the year here. Everything that is right with this basketball program was shown in that play. Heart, defense, everything that you talk about, Wani displays on that play. Everything Coach Sampson talks about is right there in front of you. From getting the rebound and getting fouled, making the free throws when you're like a 52% free throw shooter on the year, making both in that clutch time, then coming down the next play, they put you on the future #1 pick. Like Sam said, one of the best prospects the NBA has seen in a long time, not named Victor Wembanyama. And you just go down, you play perfect defense, you don't foul, you get a hand in his face, and that guy doesn't make the bucket when he's made that bucket on teams time after time that season. Getting the hand up there, taking the Cougs, riding Wani Roberts to the national championship game. That's why that one wins for me. And then just the play itself, the hand in the face, the great defense, everything leading up to it, everything after was perfect. But that defense that he played, Stonewall's Cooper Flag, one of the best prospects, and takes the Cougs to the national championship game. That will be one of my, in 5 years, when Wani Roberts is back visiting University of Houston, and I have a giant picture of his career, it will be that one, him playing defense against Cooper Flag, and I will have him sign that, and it will hang in my house where my future wife will go, what in the world is that? And I have to explain to her that this 23-year-old had one of the best moments of my life in a Final Four game.
I'm a little surprised. I mean, I don't have anything against Wani Roberts or the incredible defense he played or the impact of that particular play. I was going back and forth between 2 men's basketball plays, and that was not one of the 2 that I was going back and forth between. I was going back and forth between the 2 Milos Uzan plays, and I ended up going with the Milos Uzan steal, Malik Wilson 3 versus Kansas. And I think what did it for me that put me there was just this seeming sheer impossibility of that play happening. Like when you're saying, yeah, we can still keep this one alive. All we have to do is steal an inbounds pass and then immediately hit a 3, at Fog Island Fieldhouse against Kansas. It's kind of like saying, yeah, this batter can hit for the cycle. All he's got to do is hit a triple right now in this at bat. Yeah, sure, you're theoretically only one play away from that thing potentially happening, but it never does. It never does. But this time it did. I'm telling you, whatever the max vertical leap, my max vertical leap is under normal circumstances, I jumped several inches higher into the air than that when this play happened. I totally get anybody voting for, the Purdue inbounds play was a game-winning play in the Sweet 16. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not even really going to argue with you about, the Juwan Roberts one there either. But if you'd have told me Kelvin Sampson was going to draw up a game-winning inbounds play there that the guys were going to execute perfectly, I'd have been like, yeah, I believe you. If you'd have told me Juwan Roberts was going to shut down Cooper Flagg in that play, or that Zion Chris was going to scramble for that touchdown, or that Caden Broadnax was about to win that race, I'd have believed you. I would not have believed you if you had told me that Houston was going to pull that off. Literally, when Sharp hit the 3 moments before, I said out loud to myself, well, yeah, because it was the first 3 he hit all game. He was really struggling. I go, yeah, great, now he hits one. It's literally too late now. It wasn't. It turns out it actually wasn't. So that is why that play just stands out for me, just a bit above the other Uzan play and all of these other very excellent candidates.
I guess some of us just have belief in our team, and no, I'm just kidding.
Dustin said, he took it as a foregone conclusion that Jalen Roberts was going to lock down Cooper Flagg. Even if we disagree on this pick, I respect that. I'm certainly not going to neg the Uzan Steele Wilson 3 there because, yeah, I would say I also found about close to my vertical and close to the highest range that I'm like, oh my God, when I watched it happen live in that game. So I appreciate it, even if I voted differently. And I think kind of apropos, we're gonna end on a 2-2 tie here because the fans agree with Dustin. The fans voted by 43% for the Uzan Steele Wilson 3, though the Uzan Tugler to Uzan Purdue thing also got over 30% there in second place. So we're gonna have a tie between these two incredible Cougar men's basketball moments as the play of the year and cap off. I think going down memory lane for what was a really fun U of H season to experience live.
Yeah, even like you had the highs of basketball, the lows of football at times, but every sport provided at least a couple of highs.
Even the lows of football, you won 3 Big 12 games. Like that, that wasn't bad,
There's things that made you believe that this athletic department is actually kind of trending in the right direction. Whereas the year before, I don't know if we felt that way.
Yeah, outside men's basketball, yeah.
Yeah. And looking forward, had a lot of fun doing this with you guys. Always, like Bobby said, always one of my favorite episodes of the year. Looking forward, hoping to see a little more competition with men's basketball for some of these awards going into next year. And the other thing that I'm really keeping my eyes on, we had a most improved team category for 1 year back in 2017-18. I think the second year we ever did this. Women's hoops won it unanimously. The next year, it wasn't really an interesting question. There just wasn't really any candidates that really felt like they deserved to be there. So we mostly... that has kind of been the case since then, / we just kind of forgot to ever come back to it. We've got a lot of candidates, I feel like, going into next year that are going to be in competition for that category. If for no other reason, then we've got a lot of teams that have kind of nowhere to go but up at this point. So I'm saying this to all you all now, both Bobby and Sam, and also the listeners. So hopefully one of us will remember going into next year that if we've got 3 or 4 interesting candidates, we can bring back most improved team here.
It is insane you said that. I was in the Google Sheet because we have a Google Sheet of the previous winners. Like, believe it or not, Bobby, Dustin, I do not have every previous winner completely memorized by rote here. And I scrolled down because I was reading the last one and I saw that one. I'm like, that would actually be interesting. I thought to myself about 15 minutes ago, like that would be an interesting one to revisit. It's absolutely crazy you said that. Like that's one we need to, definitely need to remember to maybe revive that one for the 25-26 edition, the 10th. Pawscars in about 12 months time here.
Well, awesome, guys. Well, I think that's it for everything this week, right?
Yes, sir. Take us home.
I did want to do one shout out.
That's right.
I got to do one shout out. This is more City of Houston rather than U of H. But I got to shout out to Toro, the Texans mascot, making the Mascot Hall of Fame. As you guys know, and some people who listen may know, I actually was Toro's intern for a year with the Texans. It's now a different guy than it was then, but I've got to don the suit a couple of times. I've got to put it on and be Toro. But it's a cool program. They do a lot of really good stuff in the community with him. They do some anti-bullying programming, some star testing programming. It was a super fun job. I loved doing it. That's why I cheer for the Texans despite liking every other Dallas team. But big shout out. I know the work that started with Toro. The guy I worked for was the original Toro. He was one of the first Texans employees. And the current guy took the torch and kind of kept doing that for them, and has really kind of taken Toro to the next level. So shout out Toro, the two main Toros that have performed. Shout out you guys. Super excited for them. And yeah, just wanted to give them a shout out there. So thank you, gentlemen, for letting me do my little shout out there. But that is it for this episode of the podcast. We are headed into the summer season, and if you want a lot of our premium content that we're going to do this summer, highly recommend you go to patreon.com/shpodcast. We're going to do some really cool stuff there. You can also follow us on social media. We are on Twitter at shpodcast. You can also find us on Blue Sky at podcast.bsky.social. You can find us there as well. And if you have sworn off social media, good for you. I welcome you to email us, shpodcast@gmail.com. And guys, I think that's it. Dustin, what do we always say?
Go Cougs.
Sam?
Go Cougs.
All right. Go Cougs! Let's go!